Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025 for our first Hoops HD podcast of the new year. This is our Under the Radar. We are recording here on the afternoon of January
Woohoo!
2nd. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. Over there, we got David Griggs. Below me,
Yes,
we
we
got John
do.
Salika. And back again from Bracketeer.org, we got the one and only Rocco Miller. And where do we start with these shows? Under the
I'm
Radar,
still not.
Griggs.
I'm still on the no-fly list. I can't get on Rocco's Jets.
Well, you actually have video
Go
back
to the
this week,
games.
which is good. You know, we finally got you
Yeah,
a
they
new
let me out
tablet.
of jail, but
Oh,
now I'm still not allowed on the Jets.
um, what is under the radar?
The simplest definition is that it is the 23 regular one bid leagues. There's no rule that says they are one bid or that they can't get two or three. I think that there's one conference in particular that we think might get as many as two. But they normally only get one bid. So we're certainly not talking about the four power conferences, the ACC, SEC, Big 12, and Big 10. And we're not talking about the other five regular multi-bid leagues, which is the Big East, the Atlantic 10, the American, the West Coast, and God, the Mountain West.
Right.
Hey, I got them
Uh,
all.
you got them all. Only qualification throw in, there's only 22, not 23 conferences.
22,
Oh,
22. Yeah.
or you can add five more
He's
if you
hung
throw in our
around
mythical
Joby
ones.
too much.
Yeah.
but uh, but what we like to do is go through all these conferences in alphabetical order, save for a feature conference that I pick and surprise you guys with because we started this recording this at 3:10 p.m. I picked it at 3:09, but I figured because it was a new year, what better way to start out the new year than with I think our favorite conference. Um,
Yes.
we haven't featured them yet this year. There's really been no reason to feature them. There probably is no reason to feature them today either. But we love the Northeast Conference, and so I figured why not? Let's start there tonight, Griggs.
Yeah.
Uh,
And performing at a level that is much higher than what you normally see from an NEC team, Central Connecticut is not half bad. And I'll defer to Rocco because I know he's a better committee guessing expert than I am. But when I look at Central Connecticut, Rocco, I'm thinking inside the first four, which is not a place you normally see the NEC. We love this league. We certainly love the rivalry and the venues and the proximity and the atmosphere it's some of these games, like the intensity is more than what you think that it is. And it has its share of really exciting games within the conference. It seems like so many of them come down to the last possession and it's just fun to watch. But as far as matching up against the other 31 conferences or 30 conferences, it just doesn't. But Central Connecticut, better than what you normally see from a team in this league, and certainly better than I think anybody else so far this year by quite a bit, really.
Yeah, I think the addition of Devin Hade has been really helpful to go along with Jordan Jones and Jaden Brown and Devontae Sweetman have been awesome. The older team had great success winning the league last year, and of course falling in the conference tournament. But I think Patrick Sellers has got it going on. He might be on his way up if they can win the league this year in terms of going to a bigger league for himself. And it's been really impressive. They get it done with defense. Their offense isn't anything that glorious. They just play hard-nosed basketball, but they're getting it done defensively, much like Wagner does, just a little bit more athletic and more size than Wagner. Those matchups will be really interesting, I think, because we saw Wagner basically take everybody out of their game with 3 road wins in the NEC tournament last year. So I think
Yeah.
that's the great mystery is how Wagner comes together. I also think Fairleigh Dickinson, from an offensive standpoint, has played well and exciting. Of a fast tempo team, some good athletes on their team. They haven't been getting the wins, but you saw them go to LaSalle and only lose by 5. They just went to Boston College, lost by 8. So again, they're getting better with those losses. So I think those are the 3 teams I'm looking at in this league right now.
Yeah,
yeah,
Central Connecticut also undefeated at home, and
Yeah.
that's kind of important because you mentioned something that I forgot to mention is that the conference tournament's on campus sites. So if they're in
Yep.
first place, they'll have a path to the championship game all on their home court. They
let me
being
throw
Central
let me
Connecticut.
throw
Yeah,
something else there. The 3 teams in red are transitional. They're not eligible for the NCAA tournament. They are all eligible to play in the Northeast Conference tournament. And if somehow we end up with 2 teams that are both ineligible in the championship game, the NEC has already said they will have the 2 semifinal losers play a automatic bid qualification game, a third place game for the auto bid on the same day as the championship game. So we could have two NEC title games in a way. If it's one ineligible versus an eligible team, the eligible team will get in no matter what happens in that championship game.
So which one is the real NEC championship and which one is the NEC bonus game?
Yeah.
Exactly, the NEC bonus game. I gotta say, Stalika, let me ask you another thing about it. I mean, this conference has been hit by losing teams in recent years between St. Francis of Brooklyn getting rid of sports altogether, teams like Bryant's transferring out. And have we lost some of the great rivalries here? We no longer have LIU
Yes.
St. Francis. We no longer have Wagner Bryant, which was just starting to get some heat after that championship game a few years back. Uh, is it lose a little bit, or do you think we could still get there with this conference?
Robert Morris was another team that
Yes.
was kind of semi-regular, but they've moved over to the Horizon League where they haven't really sniffed a title game there yet. We're also going to see how Chicago State does this year, although one of their best players from last year had transferred over to Providence. But to answer your original question, there's still going to be enough permutations and rivalries where I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. So I think if Central Connecticut can actually get the double with the regular season and the conference tournament, you're probably looking at a 15 seed.
Yeah,
It the Battle of Brooklyn, I really hate that it's gone. It was really something, and to say that it was a unique setup and venue is an understatement. I miss St. Francis Brooklyn. I hate what happened to that program. Well, I just hate that that decision was made.
there's the upcoming games on the screen. Central Connecticut, who we talked about at the top of the conference, starts with two road games here to start conference play at St. Francis and at Mercyhurst. So be interesting if they can get that sweep. That's a good start for the conference season
The
for the Blue
Western
Devils.
PA road swing.
Western PA road swing. Yeah, and you do have a lot of teams that are still very close in proximity to each other between Wagner, LIU, Fairleigh Dickinson. Those are short bus rides. These
Yeah.
are. But let's jump back over to the America East. And Rocco, we're about to get into conference play here. Didn't see too much of note in terms of the non-conference action this past week. A couple losses by teams like Maine, but Lowell, I think, is a team we've been focusing on, and I don't know that we should really change our attention yet.
Yeah, not in terms of who deserves it. Like UMass Lowell's deserved it at 11-4. Nobody else better than 8-7 across the board. I will say, like I think we said last week, with Vermont trying to get healthy, they're a ticking time bomb till when they'll click. They've had bad non-conferences before under Becker and showed up for league play, a whole new juggernaut. So keep your eye on them. They actually get a nice little cushy start this weekend against a really bad New Hampshire team. That should help get their confidence going because they will play Lowell a week from today on the 9th as we record this on the 2nd. So really looking forward to that a week from now. But before then, Albany's been a good home team. They were the first team to beat Columbia. That happened in the same building. Lowell's got to go there this Saturday.
Yeah.
That should be probably the highlighted game. And Maine at Bryant, arguably two teams fighting for top 4 spots right out of the gate. That should be a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
you
it's
mentioned-
it's hard to say the first game of the conference season is a trap game. That could be a trap game for Lowell, looking
Oh, it
ahead to
is.
the big rival Vermont to follow for their home opener after that.
I think it is. Lowell has won 6 in a row, but 5 of those 6 has been at home, and they haven't exactly been against teams that are as good as Albany or as hard to win as the one that they're about to play. Not only is it a trap game, I think it's a litmus test. How good is Lowell? Can they win at Albany?
Yeah,
Uh,
pretty good.
Over in the A Sun, Stalika, I think we had a couple games going on today, or maybe not. North Florida and Austin P are going on right as we record this, in fact. But that's actually I guess that's the first conference game of the season as well. So no conference standings yet. But what are your thoughts on this league, especially with Lipscomb with the top 100 net at the moment?
Well, there was also a near miss by Eastern Kentucky where they nearly were able to get into Louisville and get a win against a Cardinal team that's been much improved. But unfortunately, another missed opportunity for the Colonels right here. Florida Gulf Coast, a team that started to fall off in recent years. They do get a win against a Richmond team that's also faded pretty badly. but I still think Lipscomb is probably going to be head and shoulders above the rest of the league. North Florida was a team we had some hopes for early in the year, but they've faded off of late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you look at Lipscomb here, they've won, I want to say, 6 of the last 7. The only loss, a 2-point loss on the road against a pretty strong Middle Tennessee team. Some of their other losses, a close game at Western Kentucky, not the easiest place to go. Lipscomb to me just looks really good. I mean, that was a really good game that Eastern Kentucky played. They really had a chance to win. It took Louisville a shot in the final seconds to beat them. But aside from that, EKU just hasn't looked as good as consistently as Lipscomb has. At least I don't think they have.
I think the Rocco. I'm really starting to pay attention to Gulf Coast. The fact that they beat Richmond, that's good. They do it on the road, even better, and they do it almost in blowout fashion. That kind of sends a statement heading into league play.
It does, and they've been right there in a lot of their losses. You have to kind of look past the 5-8 overall record. But they went to LSU, lost by single digits. They played a great Furman team, lost in the last 30 seconds. Northeastern's had a good year. They lost close to them. They beat Florida Atlantic on the road, which is obviously a big time win, a top 100 road win. And they went to Drake and lost by 2. So they played Bonaventure, who's arguably a top 25 team now. TCU's a high major. So this team is battle tested. They've got some really nice pieces. And yeah, I think they're right there in the mix for the contendership. I also think North Alabama's had a nice non-conference season. So Lipscomb, North Alabama, Florida Gulf Coast, and I do think EKU should gain some confidence from that Louisville effort. They were right there; they could have won it. And Queens is a little bit of a different team, obviously not postseason eligible yet, but they've been playing pretty well lately. I expect them to potentially win every game at home, or at least be very difficult to win at Queens. So there's a lot of good variety in the top 6 or 7 right now.
And while most of you are watching this, all these Thursday games might be final by the time you watch it. Saturday, that Gulf Coast at Queens game might be the highlighted game for this week, for this first week of conference play, actually. Find out just how good Gulf Coast is on the road, and just how tough Queens is going to be to beat.
I would still highlight Lipscomb's trip to Jacksonville, where they take on both the Dolphins and the Ospreys.
That will be over by the time most of you watch the show. That's the reason why it's too much time on that game.
It'll be good, though.
Yeah. Griggs, over in the Big Sky Conference, again, we have a bunch of we had one loss by Weber State at Oregon and a bunch of non-D1 wins this past week. So there's not much new to report here, I guess.
Not much at all, and my feelings on these games. I almost want to just ignore them completely and not give them any credence. So,
but what about heading into today, especially if it's night with this Weber State Northern Colorado game?
A good one. I like this Northern Colorado team. I mean, they haven't always played up to what I think that their ceiling is, and they've dropped some games that I thought that they had a chance to win. But when compared to the rest of the league, I kind of like them more than anyone else. I have noticed, I don't know if you all have, every time I pick out someone other than Northern Colorado that I say that I like, they totally crash into a mountain.
I'd say the other. Go ahead, Rocco.
I think it's a huge week for the Idaho Vandals. They've they just blew out Pacific by 23 on the road right before the holiday. Now they've had almost 2 weeks off, but they get to host Montana State here on Thursday and then Montana Saturday. If they're really going to be in the mix, hold and serve on both of those won't be easy, but it is doable. So really curious to see what we'll get from the Vandals.
It is. It's still a week away. Northern Colorado at Montana State should be a great one next Thursday. In fact, we'll probably do another show before that game even happens. But
yeah.
We're recording a day later than normal this week. But Rocco, let me stick with you over in the Big South, which just saw Charleston Southern with a home win over Gardner-Webb. So they are in sole possession of first place. Stop the count. The Buccaneers win the conference.
Yeah, congrats to Saad Nimley. That's Charleston Southern's first Big South opener win in 5 years. And they've had years where they started 0-10 in the league. So 1-0 is going to feel especially good for them in North Charleston. And they get Longwood on the road Saturday, so not too much time to celebrate, but a good performance today. They actually held Gardner-Webb to 2 for 18 shooting from deep. a really putrid performance for the Bulldogs. But they're still going to be coming along as the season goes through with Jeremy Luther in his first year. I'd say overall in the league, High Point's the team to beat, but they are coming in off of a home loss to Norfolk.
How about that game? Yeah.
Major credit to Norfolk, but again, High Point has yet to really, really take off. Still trying to figure out rotations, injuries, etc. And now they've got a kind of a tricky week. They opened today with Radford, so by the time you see this, you'll know how that went. But Radford's been solid all year, and they got to go to UNC Asheville, a very inspired UNC Asheville team on Saturday. So very interesting week for High Point at the top.
Hey, don't forget, next Wednesday, they got to go to the first place Charleston Southern team.
That's right.
That game literally ending about 10 minutes before now.
We're on it. Yeah. We're on top of it.
Hey, we got Longwood Presbyterian in a 1-point game in the second half as we record this.
This one's been kind of fun in front of the dozens that are there to see it. I've had it on. It's been a fun game to watch.
All right. Stalika, over in the Big West Conference, and talk about a league that may really have a shot at putting two teams in the field here.
Well, UC Irvine about a week or so ago didn't do themselves any favors with the loss at Duquesne. Now, they're still going to have a couple of quad 2 wins on their ledger, and that's only like one Q3 loss for the Anteaters, so that's probably their first strike. UC San Diego has also had the strike at home against Seattle, but that's also been negated with the road win at Utah State, which is getting better and better by the day.
Yeah, and Rocco, when I look at these profiles, though, I mean, I know there's a lot of basketball to still play. He's looking about dead even at two profiles can ever look, in my opinion. Little edge to San Diego with that win at Utah State, but at Northern Iowa and at Belmont does have to count for something for the Eaters.
It does, yeah. And the Eaters at full strength, which I guess you could argue they'll never be full strength again because Redfield's out for the year. But I actually think they would still be the team to beat in the league going in. But I've been really concerned because Andre Henry hasn't played now the last 3 or 4, and I think that's why you saw them really struggle with Duquesne. They really struggled in that last game they played against Cal Baptist, but they pulled that out at the end. And I think tonight is a big warning sign because I think Cal Poly is just finally returning to health. Again, they've had a long break. Last we saw them, they lost to Omaha, easy to overlook, but I think they're going to start becoming that Cal Poly team we saw in November and started to fall in love with. So really, really interesting opening night game for Irvine. It's not opening night. They've already played 2 league games, but you know what I'm saying. Opening 2025 game. Because if Henry doesn't play, I could easily see Cal Poly winning that game. And then, Cal Poly's got to go to Hawaii on Saturday, so that's going to be interesting. This league's got no shortage. I think you go back to the UC San Diego big story. After they beat Utah State, of course, Utah State's now won at St. Mary's, at San Diego State, and there's a third one I'm missing. But they at Nevada, they just beat it at Nevada at the end of on New Year's Eve. So Utah State's gone on and won 3 massive road games. So that UC San Diego win has just grown even better than we could ever have imagined when it happened, and that really gets them on the radar.
It should. Now, listen to this sequence. This is the Eaters, and I kind of beat them up last week. And after thinking about it a little more, this is the sequence since December 14th. At Oregon State, which is not near Irvine, at Belmont, also not near Irvine. At Duquesne, we're talking 3 time zones away. At Cal Baptist, at Cal Poly, they come home for a cup of coffee against UC Riverside, and then they're back out on the road again at Northridge and San Diego. That's a stretch of 7 games out of 8 that are on the road. And if they can come through that, if they can win out for the rest of that stretch, come on, committee. Rocco, you know the committee. Don't they have to get a lot of credit for that?
I would hope so. I think all 4 of those games are tough coming up. Like Riverside's not a cup of coffee; it's almost a cup of gin. And I think Northridge on the road.
I just meant that they're stopping in their own home for a cup of coffee. Like they.
Right, yeah, it's their first home game since December 5th, and then they're back on the road for the 2 big ones. Yeah, and I think without Andre Henry, there's no way they can win all 4. They really need him back. He's he does it all. He's like a Swiss Army knife defensively. He's always on the other team's best player, whether 1 through 4. Obviously, he's not able to guard the 5, but yeah, that's the thing to monitor with Henry back in. That makes him a little deeper, obviously way more versatile and capable of winning all 4 of those games.
Yeah.
Here's the upcoming games. Obviously, you mentioned that. Also, Saturday, Stalika, Riverside at Irvine. We all know what that is. Is top being a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my family will probably want to watch the Bengals and the Steelers, but I'll be lobbying for another TV for the Rivervine Cup here. Of course, that's their one home game in that tough stretch that Rocco had just mentioned.
Another patented Hoops HD made-up rivalry.
Yes.
Griggs, over in the CAA, where yet again Hampton, for about the 5th week in a row, still in sole possession of first place, having played the only conference game so far. Going to change very soon, though.
Yeah, I still like College of Charleston more than most of the rest, but there's reason for pause there, and I certainly don't think they're going to just run away from the rest of the league. In fact, the more and more I see them, while I still like them more than anyone else, there's a lot of games on here. There's a lot of trap games. There's that stretch where they are on the road for 4 out of 5 coming up, starting next week, where they go to Hofstra, Monmouth, and Elon. That is
Campbell.
a tough stretch. Well, Campbell and then Elon after that. Yeah. So where 4 of their next 4 5 are on the okay, after they get these 2 at home, they go on the road for 4 of the next 5, and it's a tough stretch. I can't seem to get the words from my brain out of my mouth today.
But the other story here has been this Elon team, which Rocco,
Yeah.
you focused it on early in the season. I still love this. Beating Marshall, that's good. Beating them by 14 points, even better.
Yeah, I mean they've been terrific at home, and they'll be at North Carolina A&T here today on the opening day, and that's a tough place to win. Corbett is electric, as they showed during the HBCU showcase on CBS. They dominated NC Central, but and the other thing to monitor at Elon is we know about the Simpkins boys, but TK has been out, so they dominated Marshall without TK. Keep your eye on his status this weekend, because not only does Elon have the road A&T tonight, they'll have to face that hot Hampton team on Saturday. Hampton's won 5 in a row, Chad. And I'm starting to think they're more than just a great story with Ivan Thomas's first year. I think they're legitimately a pretty good defensive team. And, I mean, they're really starting to click right now. And they got a big test this week at Charleston tonight, and as I said, at Elon on Saturday. So we'll get a better idea of the Pirates. But I really like where they're at coming into the week.
But even more importantly for Hampton last weekend, beating Howard, proving that they are the real HU.
That's
Yeah.
right.
The
That
battle for
was
the real,
big.
the battle for the real HU.
And it wasn't close. They pretty much dominated them. So
Yeah.
This is the rest of the upcoming schedule for this weekend. But let's keep things rolling here.
Hampton at College of Charleston tomorrow. Or tonight, sorry.
Yeah, tonight.
watch
Yep.
out for Towson. Watch out for Towson too. They're finally getting healthy, and they have a horrible record. But I think they might knock some teams off here quickly.
Stalika, here's Conference USA, which finished up finally this Conference USA WAC Challenge, which I believe started on opening day by just dominating the WAC 14-4 overall. FIU's win over Utah Tech, finishing that challenge series off. But I think we've got several really good teams in this conference.
Well, it was hard to tell this week because you basically had the second division of the Front Range unsuccessfully trying to take on, or not the Front Range, the Back Range, trying to take on the top division right here. But Liberty, who have been constantly voting in the top 10 under the radar, as well as Louisiana Tech. Also watch the Miners of UTEP, who have also quietly been making a move themselves.
Yeah, and these games tonight at both Griggs are both Western Kentucky at Liberty, Louisiana Tech at UTEP. Ones I'm circling, plus Middle Tennessee Liberty on Saturday.
Yeah, those are tough. I mean that's those are tough road games. Like UTEP, it's not going to be easy. Western Kentucky still talented. I know Michigan blew them into the sun the last time out, but I still think that this is a dangerous WKU team. And Liberty, while they have that bloated record, Western Kentucky's probably better than most of the teams that they've played. Now, I still think Liberty could and should win that game, but don't overlook the toppers.
And the question you have with Liberty, you see that 12-1 record, you're like, oh, wow, could this team have a shot at an at-large bid? And on one hand, you look like they're going to have some decent competition in the conference, but on the other hand, especially Rocket, when you look at this conference, I don't know there's a way you could run through this league. There's a lot of
Yeah.
teams that are very close to them in talent, and I don't see that they don't come out of this scathed pretty bad at the end of the day.
Yeah, and like we've discussed, the travel with going all the way from Lynchburg, Virginia, to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and over to Fort Lauderdale, Miami Beach area for FIU, and everything in between, Kentucky, Tennessee, Louisiana. There's so many places you have to go on the journey. It's probably I'm thinking 3 losses each for at minimum for every one of these teams at the top. And Western Kentucky, like you guys said, I think you're gonna get some live bullets from them tonight because we saw them just get trounced by Michigan. But usually that makes them a little more dangerous. They might not want to show a lot once that game got out of hand early, and I'm sure that will also get Western Kentucky a little extra focused for the opener tonight. We also have down at New Mexico State, the Jason Hooten Bowl, of course, coached at Sam Houston for 11 years. Now at New Mexico State, it's always fun when he plays his old team because Chris Mudge is his protege and has the job there. Sam Houston won the league last year in the regular season, so that will be an awesome one locally. And more news that just came out in the last hour: New Mexico State has fired their athletic director, but I imagine that was from some of the problems of the past and also football related. So a big day in Las Cruces today.
Wow, I had not heard that. That happened today?
It happened about an hour ago. Yes, Mario.
Wow.
I forget his last name, but
Yeah.
yes.
So there's a job open. I don't. I would like to announce my candidacy for that position.
We need Briggs and Las.
Rocco,
Briggs in Las
it worse.
Cruces. We need him in Las Cruces.
Rocco, let me stick with you. Go over to the Horizon League, and the big question: do you yet have the Penguin fever?
I do.
5-0
Yes.
now. 5-0.
They've been awesome. They've
Best
been
conference
absolutely
record of anybody in the nation. Any team in the entire nation. No one else is
That's right.
5-0.
Yeah.
They went undefeated in December as well. They made the perfect in December list earlier. And they've been doing it with defense, Chad, which is really impressive because just a couple of years ago, and I know Calhoun's moved on to Utah State, but Faulkner is running the program now, and he was the associate coach before. So it's a carry forward of all these defensive improvements they've made. They're top 5 defending the arc in the last month. They're top 35 2-point defense and top 20. They're 26 overall in defense, and that's nationally. Top 10 effective field goal percentage defense. They're just doing a lot to disrupt their opponents. That tells me they're very, very prepared each night. This is a league where the margins are thin, like most of these leagues. So it's been really impressive because they have a reputation of playing a really fun offensive system. But in a lot of these wins, like the shots aren't necessarily falling for the Penguins, but they're grinding and winning in a different way. And that's a sign of a really good team. I would also just call out, I think Cleveland State's been really impressive lately, 3-1 and had a lot of tough games I think they just beat Fort Wayne and a couple, and they beat Wright State already. So they've got some good momentum as well. Cleveland State, I think, was picked 6th or 7th, and they're playing like a top 3 contender right now.
And also don't forget Northern Kentucky, the only conference loss, the triple overtime to Morris Robert. And how about if you missed the end of the regulation, Northern Kentucky Fort Wayne, which is another game that went overtime, a wedgie 10 regulation. It was great.
Yeah.
Does this count as a quadrupler for Northern Kentucky, considering they've played 4 overtimes this week?
Milwaukee and Oakland today is going to be a blast. That should be a great game.
Should be. You also don't want to forget about Green Bay and I forgot.
10-game losing streak.
Yeah.
Real good game actually Saturday. Youngstown at Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne a little disappointing so far, but still had been on one of our preseason picks. And then followed up next Wednesday, Northern Kentucky at Youngstown. So a couple good games coming up here in this league over the next week. But Stalika, over in, what are we up to? The Ivy League, did Rutgers put an end to the Columbia Magic, or are you still on board with them?
Well, they briefly interrupted the Columbia Magic, but it had to be a little discouraging losing by 27 after some of the close calls that the Scarlet Knights have had, including at home at the JMA. But Columbia just not on the same wavelength as Rutgers would be.
On the other hand, Greg's Princeton, nice win over Akron, and they're the team that I'm paying the most attention to right now, honestly.
Me too. You say a nice win over Akron. I mean, it was. They had to sweat a little more than I thought they did. Now, to give them credit, they did win the game, and Akron is no pushover. I think I'm starting to notice that I just seem to overvalue Princeton. But when you look at them, and they did get off to a bit of a they kind of slept through their alarm a little bit. But winners of 6 of their last 7. The only loss at Furman, a very good Furman team, and that was a really competitive game. And also in that stretch, that win against a Rutgers team that's also probably underperformed a little bit, but still really good. What is Rutgers awake and running, and can they? It might be too late to get inside the bubble, but can they be that dangerous team that we thought they were going to be, or at least that I did back in November?
Yeah, it's Princeton, that team, yeah, and uh, I don't know. I think heading into conference play here, they're probably going to be my pick
Yeah.
at top league. Rocco, you're hesitating on that though.
Yeah, I think I feel the most secure with Yale.
Okay.
We saw Yale win the Ivy tournament
It's my
last year.
backup school. So
Well, they're the only team really playing consistent defense. And Cornell can shoot the living daylights out of the ball. I saw them do that against Cal out here. Big road win for Cornell. But then you've seen some disappointing performances out of Cornell, and they really can't get stops. And that's going to create a big set of results. Like they might knock off Princeton, they might knock off Yale once, or maybe even sweep one of those teams. But I think in the long haul, they're going to have some slip ups because the defense isn't quite there. And then, there's flaws, I think, across the board, but I think Yale's the most steady ship. And I think John Palakidis, when healthy, he just came back. He missed 3 games, looked really good in his return. They destroyed Howard by 28, and they look to be clicking really good. And, of course, with that Yale defense, I think they've got to be the pick, in my opinion.
Here's the upcoming schedule. If this conference does not go undefeated this week, there's a serious problem here
we
for
are
non-D1
revoking
games.
their auto bid if they lose any of those.
But let's jump right on over here to Griggs, over to the Metro Atlantic, where I think we're about to get back into conference play now. Don't really know that there was too much notable non-conference. Siena with a road win at Cornell was decent for the team, I guess.
Yeah. That was kind of a nice win by Siena. I still like Marist overall, but this strikes me as a league that's going to have a lot of parity. Quinnipiac is who we like coming into the year. While they've stubbed their toes out of conference and not gotten some wins that you thought that they would, they did win for what it's worth, their first 2 conference games. Merrimack's been kind of fun. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Merrimack's got a team. I think St. Peter's can be dangerous, even though they start out 0-2 in conference play. But we know anything could happen at the Metro Atlantic tournament. It normally does.
Yeah.
So, although this year I think it's only the top 10 qualify for it, so you can't finish 11th, 12th, or 13th. Otherwise, one of those 3 teams might win it.
Yeah, and Chad, I think we can save 13th for Canisius, so it's really 12 teams for 10 spots.
Yeah. Canisius having a bit rough of a season so far. Just a little rough year.
That is centenary-esque. Like they're them in Chicago State. Oh.
Here are the upcoming games as we get back into start of Friday night, right back into conference play. I guess if you want to look at Marist, they've got a road test at Iona, and they are home against Quinnipiac on Sunday, which that's going to be a good one on Sunday, actually, I think.
Yeah, tough week for Marist. Them and Iona always get after each other. That's a fun series.
I'm just waiting for Sacred Heart to take on the actual Manhattan and not Manhattanville College.
We're getting there. Rocco, how about the Mid-American Conference, where Kent State has looked pretty good so far? I mean, this week they actually struggled with only winning by 4 over the Hindenburg or Heidelberg or something like that, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah, I have no idea. I didn't even know that.
This game was close. I was watching as it was going on. I actually had the game on, but it was close the whole way, and it really just shocked me that either Heidelberg is a very good non-D1 team, or Kent State just didn't bother showing up.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I mean, I've talked to Coach Senderhoff quite a bit, through the off season. Of course, seeing him in Canada They'd sound familiar as a pretty good lower D1 or sorry D2, I believe. Stalika might know
No,
because it's right there.
Heidelberg is D3. They're in the Ohio
Wow.
Athletic Conference.
Yeah, that's not good against a D3 then. but yeah, I do think Kent State defensively is super rock solid. They are very annoying to play against. Yeah, Akron's defense has actually been better, but Akron's offense has been really pathetic. It's interesting. Ball State's actually playing high level offense, but no defense. They're a wild card in this league. I also think Ohio U, although they only played 3 D1 games in the last month, in those 3 games, they've actually been the best team. So it's really hard to tell. I would go with Kent State because they've actually shown it against some really good competition. And then look out for like those wild card teams. Ohio U and Akron usually will be at the top. Toledo's been in a serious funk. They can't get any stops against any level of teams right now. So, but Toledo's track record's good, so maybe they will get a hot streak going again. And yeah, it's a pretty wide open league.
Yeah, it's kind of this league is fun. One of the things that it is sort of lacking that you normally see is that potentially dangerous round of 64 team or even a team that's going to make a run at the bubble, but the parity is really good. You mentioned Ohio. They were a team that I liked sort of as a dark horse coming into the year.
Yeah.
Did they sort of sleep through their alarm? Because if you look at them, they won 4 of their last 5. The only loss on the road at Marshall, which is not exactly a gangbuster, but it's still a hard game to win. And they're looking good. I still
Yeah.
like this Ohio team. I'm glad you mentioned them.
I
Yeah,
know Chad said you need to follow the 6 Ohio schools, but I think we can pretty much cut the Northwest Ohio schools out of the mix.
Yeah, I think Ohio they've been great at home. They got them, they took Middle Tennessee to overtime in their tournament. We just haven't learned a lot. Otherwise, they've had 4 road games, lost all 4 of them. So it's a wait and see. But obviously, they'll be tough at home, and I think Bulls' track record really is something you can lean on too. So
They got interesting. They start with 2 road games at Central Michigan and at Buffalo, so both winnable also. So be an interesting
Yeah.
week for Ohio. And circle Saturday, Ball State at Kent State. I think that should be a really good game also. Uh, Griggs, how about the MEAC?
Well, Norfolk State, a
Yeah,
really nice win.
Yeah.
I mean, a really, really legit
and
nice
how
win
and how
against a
about
good.
like I warned you all, they hung with Tennessee. I didn't say they would beat Tennessee, but they hung with Tennessee. Only lost by
More
15.
than
That's
what you would
respectable.
think.
Yeah.
it's not
It
bad at
really
all.
was, and no one. I mean, I think that this league is outperformed what it normally does by quite a bit. Delaware State's had their moments.
Mm-hmm.
You got NC Central with 7 overall wins, albeit only 3 against D1. South Carolina State, while they're
Awesome.
4-9, they've taken some high major teams to the wall. Nearly beat, was it Xavier and somebody else?
Georgia.
Georgia on
Georgia,
Sunday.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the MEAC performing, the MEAC and the NEC, Dayton Staples, as you call it, performing at a level to where I think they're going to get inside of Dayton, especially Norfolk State. This is a good Norfolk State team, and we've been saying it all year, but I was surprised. As good as I thought that they were, and as much better as I thought that they were than they normally are. The win at High Point, that's a for real, legit, really good win. That, in my opinion, is going to be better than anything that anybody else on the 16 line has by quite a bit. Can they get
Former,
inside the 16 line?
gonna
Mhm.
say former Bob Huggins player Eric Martin is coaching South Carolina State, so clearly they're going to be one of the better defensive teams to watch in this conference.
Yeah, and talk about watching this conference. A little news out of the MEAC. There's now confirmation that 6 out of these 8 teams will be streaming their home games on ESPN Plus this season. So we'll get into
Nice.
conference play. So a lot better chance to watch these teams. Only Eastern Shore and South Carolina State. Looks like you may have to go to their
Ah,
websites or do some
You don't
pay-per-view
need Flow
streaming for
anymore.
those.
Well, Flow Hoops used to have this league.
The
So,
flow is gone from this league. It's another year or two. The whole conference should be on ESPN Plus.
yeah,
Circle Monday night. Norfolk State at Delaware State. Big early conference test too.
yeah.
yeah, it is. It is.
We're up to Stalika, Missouri Valley Conference time, and we got to talk about what happened. It happened in Chicago on Wednesday.
Yeah, this would be the Flames of UIC knocking Drake from the ranks of the unbeaten right here. So with Drake now a game behind Bradley in Northern Iowa, kind of given up on Northern Iowa somewhat after they got blown out at home against UC Irvine. Of course, that says more about the Anteaters right here. And you look at Indiana State, who has also quietly crept back into the top half after the Valley after trying to figure out a retooled roster at the beginning of the year. Took a little time for the trees to get their motor running.
Yeah, and Rocco, and it looks like now that it looks like nobody's going to run away with this league, we could be set for a heck of a league season with five, maybe six teams in this race easily.
Yeah, we deserve that. This is the Valley. We can't mess around when it comes to the Valley. It's got to be a great league race, Chad. And yeah, it's been inspiring because UIC under new head coach Rob Eson getting that big win. Really figuring out he has a lot of nice pieces on that roster. Really starting to figure out how to best leverage those. 5-1 in their last 6 now, and at least a factor in the you can't go to UIC anymore and expect to win. They've proven that. I think Illinois State and Indiana State are continuing to improve. I think Valparaiso, it has been really impressive. Only lost by 1 in overtime to Bradley.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Missouri State and Southern Illinois have looked bad, and that's surprising. I think they'll be better by the end of the year. And yeah, so I think the good news for the Valley, even though Drake's still the team to go after the at-large situation, I think 1 through 12 almost, there's some upside, and that's great. There's not, I don't know if there's going to be the bottom feeders because Evansville's 2-1, and their best player Pizzato, he's still out.
Yeah, Evansville with not good metrics also when you look at them compared to the rest of this league. On the other hand,
Yeah.
look at Northern Iowa. Their net's up to 79 in the nation now. I mean,
Well, how about this Northern Iowa team? They're another team that I liked coming into the year that I was disappointed with, especially but when you look at it, Irvine and Wichita might be a little better than we thought, and they've won 6 of the last 7. The only loss against a pretty good Wazoo team in a competitive game. I hate to keep using this cliche, but did this team sleep through their alarm and now they're awake and now they're what they thought we were or what we thought they were going to be back in November. This is a good Northern Iowa team.
They're extremely they're extremely talented. Got to see them when they blew out Montana. You can see by the results they've had 5 tough games. They lost all 5 of them. They did go to Illinois Chicago earlier and won by 27.
Blew them out.
Yeah, so that actually looks way better today than it did yesterday. But yeah, I think the offensive skill is beautiful to watch, like lights out shooting from Bond and Anderson. But they've really got to dial it in defensively, like the old Ben Jacobson teams, to win this championship.
yeah, and they got a huge game at Valpo on Saturday, followed up by a home game against Murray, and circle next Wednesday Drake at Bradley. A huge game in the Valley.
Big one.
Should we? For a lot of these under the radar teams, should we just wait until December to start the season?
Well, it is getting a lot better now here.
Yeah.
And what are we up to here? OVC? Who am I up to? Salika, you want to hit the OVC for us?
Well, let's skip over Moorhead's 20th non-D1 win on Saturday, but they actually got a nice win at Southern Indiana on Tuesday, where at least now they have a 1 road win to go along with the 2 that they got at home that were a bit of a close call, but that was the only result of note this week.
Yeah, Moorhead's who struggled non-conference now after the 3-0 conference start. They've got a game.
They've won by 1 in overtime, by 6 because they hit free throws late, and then by 2 because Southern Indiana missed a wide open what would have been game-winning shot at the buzzer. But Moorhead State 3-0 atop the conference.
But for a league that seems destined for Dayton, Griggs,
Yeah.
3-0 is 3-0. Now SEMO also undefeated in conference play. They did have that one game that was postponed. That was Little Rock Eastern Illinois.
That was Little Rock, and I think let's not forget about them. This is still a really talented team that, because they haven't played, I think they're kind of. It looks like they're 2 games behind Moorhead, but they're really not. I still like this Little Rock team a lot.
Yeah, and Little Rock hosting Moorhead next week. It's still more than a week away, but that could be a game to circle early on in the conference season here. As far as SEMO goes, they're going to be at Tennessee State tonight and at UT Martin on Saturday. So they got a couple road games coming up.
UT Martin's been wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild team.
I will say this has been the most entertaining conference.
Look, Rocco, over in the Patriot League as we get ready for conference play, I mean, the league, when you sit there look at Colgate with some of the worst numbers in the conference, but
Yeah.
on the other hand, everyone's metrics throw out Navy is kind of says this league could be a nine-way coin flip, doesn't it?
I don't think it's that straightforward, but maybe it is because there's been a little bit of upside. I think the service academies are a little lower, but Army did just beat an American conference team in UTSA. That was great to see for them. I think Lehigh's been picking it up a little bit finally the last couple games. Boston U feels good about themselves. Holy Cross has had some awesome wins. And I think the difference with Colgate this year versus all these previous years is they actually didn't have the hardest schedule this year for non-conference. They've come in with some really bad records before, but usually just going to a bunch of high majors and getting blown out. This year, they've actually lost to a lot of what I would call their peer group teams in local regional Northeast Series games. And that's kind of concerning because those are the exact types of teams that are in the Patriot League. So it's really no sign that Colgate's going to all of a sudden wake up. I do, of course, trust the coaching of Matt Langle. He's been incredible over the years, but I just don't know if this team's that good, like roster-wise. And I've liked American. They were my preseason pick. Matt Rogers is really coming on strong. He had that huge game last week. And so, I'm looking at American and I guess performance-wise, Lehigh and Boston U, maybe you could throw Holy Cross in there are next in order.
Yeah, I tell you, if you look at most battle-tested team, Lehigh did play the best strength of schedule in this conference. They have the highest
Right.
WAB ranking of this conference,
Yep.
and those things could show that this Lehigh team might be a team to really keep an eye on heading into conference play, which starts tonight. Uh, and what do we got? Few games to note there. Holy Cross at American on Sundays is a good one also.
Mhm.
Yeah, but Lehigh gets Bucknell tonight. Bucknell's another team I think to watch long term. They've had some brutal injuries the last month. That first month, I was really impressed with them. They had a couple nice wins, beating Richmond in double overtime, beating Delaware on opening night by 12. Bucknell could come back in if they can get to full strength.
Yeah, Bucknell also had a pretty brutal schedule themselves, so good to see some
Yeah,
traditional programs like Lehigh and Bucknell. Probably going to be two of the contenders this year.
yeah.
Uh, Griggs, over in the SoCon, Furman among five teams that start out conference play 1-0, but notably 13-1 overall now as well.
Yeah, that 13-1 overall record, and that only loss being to Kansas, which is forgivable, although they weren't particularly competitive in that game. Uh, but they just blew. I mean, I know Western Carolina, not a very strong team, only 1D1 win, but I mean, Furman beat them as if it were a home bye game. I mean, just blew them off their own floor.
Yep.
And how about Buckyball? Buckyball is like, I'm just so glad that Buckyball and Penguin Finger are both is still in force this year. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Greensboro also picked up a nice road win at
Yeah.
Wofford. Always hard
That
to
was a
get
good
road wins
game.
in this conference. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice feature game on CBS Sports. I got to watch that one.
Hmm.
And I think the game of the day, you could argue, was, congrats to Ryan Ritter winning his first SoCon game at Mercer. Overtime win over Chattanooga. That's no slouch. And Tyler Johnson played tremendous with 26. Ahmad Robinson had a double-double with 25 and 10 assists. Mercer plays pretty fast. They have great guards. A real dark horse wildcard team in the league that we still are learning about.
Yeah. And here's the upcoming games in this big one circle Saturday. Furman at Greensboro.
Yeah, that's a
That
big one.
that's a chance to be a really good game. See if this Greensboro team really has something coming off of that road win at Wofford.
Mhm.
Uh,
That's the kind of game where Furman can win it. He can probably start to have some hopes as a possible at-large, but
I,
a
I
very
would
faint.
agree because I mean, like for them to have their first two conference road games and for them to get both of them, I mean, that is a great start.
Yeah, it
and
is.
then they actually got to start with three straight conference games. They play the Citadel next Wednesday. Um,
Yeah.
way up to here, Stalica over in the Southland Conference. McNeese finally got their first couple of conference games in, both victories, albeit they were both at home, but finally got their names back on top of the standings.
Yeah, that's going to be taking care of business right there. And then you'll have Lamar, who's also been kind of a quiet contender themselves. They're also going to be 2-0 along with Nichols and the Cowboys right here.
Yeah, but you know, I'm kind of starting to think Rocco that maybe McNeese has finally woken up, and now that they're into conference play, that they could just start to roll. That's the feeling I'm getting from this team.
And they certainly came out these first two games with a whole different type of moxie about them, which we saw all of last year for the most part. So it's
Yeah.
a little bit refreshing to see that we are who they thought they were, but they've played themselves out most likely of any kind of at-large bid. So they're focused on the task at hand, and that's securing the number one seed in this league. And then, of course, they get to host the tournament. So they still have the best path out of any of the leagues under the radar to get to the tournament, except for maybe arguably High Point. I would still say McNeese, Southland's a little easier path than the Big South. And so, yeah.
You also have the double bye situation in the Southland, so they would go right to the
Yeah.
semifinals.
So that breaks any other ties, right? So, yeah, we'll see if some of these other good stories like Lamar got hot for a little bit, and then they kind of got some cold water in their face when they went to Texas Tech. And Corpus Christi, I think, is a good all-around team. They'll be in the fight all year long. And how about Nichols coming up to Seattle after Seattle beat University of Washington and they beat Seattle on the road? That's a really good sign for where Nichols is heading. So those are the four to watch, I think.
Yep. McNeese is going to be at East Texas A&M and at Northwestern State over the course of the next week. A couple of road games. They proved it at home. Let's see if they can prove it on the road this week.
Mm-hmm.
Griggs over in the SWAC. Let's see. Texas Southern and Grambling both beat Biblical Studies this week. How about the week for Biblical Studies?
Well, no, you are mistaken. They beat the biblical stud.
Biblical Stud. Okay.
Yes.
I think they were beat down to biblical
that
proportions.
takes some doing to be a biblical stud.
Well, let's just go right to the upcoming schedule, Griggs. Go ahead, SWAC. As we get to conference play starting Saturday.
Yeah, as we finally get in the conference play, and I mean we've made reference to this before. It bears repeating that most of these teams, the bulk of their out of conference schedule was road bye games, so we haven't seen a whole lot of wins. More than half the league doesn't even have a D1 win. Alabama State, I think is who I like the best. They had, while again not a lot of D1 wins, they had some pretty impressive efforts. Certainly Texas Southern, the regular suspects are going to be there too, but it's kind of hard to tell how good anybody is when everybody's playing or games where they're way overmatched.
Yeah, Southern actually who had a couple nice non-conference wins at Texas Southern at Prairie View to start conference play, and good rivalry game to start on Saturday. Bethune-Cookman, Florida A&M, and Cookman's
Good.
been looking pretty good this season so far. I'd say them and Southern have
Yeah.
been the two most impressive to me, honestly.
Yeah, that used to be a big MEAC rivalry. Now it's a big SWAC rivalry.
I mean, they were
I've-
right there at
You win
Mississippi
the
State with
state,
under 10. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Salika.
No, I was just going to say it's not easy to get a win in the snake pit, but
Yeah.
short of them, that's what they won for.
Yeah, I was saying Bethune, with under 10 minutes to go, they were right neck and neck with Mississippi State. I mean, that's a huge statement for the SWAC level. And of course, they won at South Florida. And that South Carolina State team we like a lot. They beat them earlier this year by double digits. So Bethune-Cookman, they've got some guys, and this will be interesting. Brayon Freeman's a name to remember.
Of course, you also have 6 teams without a D1 win yet in this conference, and just know if you want to watch these games, I hope your YouTube is up to date, or this is one conference without any national streaming, any streaming package at all. Got to go to each individual school to find how to watch them.
And I would say, Chad, out of those, Jackson State's the one to watch because they played 13 games and all of them were guaranteed money games. And so the worst team they played was number 162 Cal Baptist. And they've got a real chance to, even though they're 0-13, to contend here.
All right. Over in the Summit League, Rocco, let me stick with you here. And this North Dakota State team, although they did not play this past week, to me, they're looking really good heading to conference play, especially I was a little disappointed in St. Thomas, albeit on the road. Went to Riverside, did lose in overtime. Game I thought they had a shot to win.
Yeah, great game. And St. Thomas and North Dakota State meet here on Thursday the 2nd. I would say the Summit game of the day for sure today. But Jackson Money's just been unbelievable. 42% from three, top 50 in the country assist rate. We all know about Jakari White's shooting prowess and how just hot he can get when they torched Butler on the road. So, North Dakota State's got a lot of nice pieces. This is arguably their most talented team they've had since joining D1 almost 20 years ago. And now it becomes for real because we've been talking about South Dakota State and their physicality. Kansas City's finally getting healthy. And I think those are the four to watch.
Yeah, that game today. Also, look out next week. South Dakota State at St. Thomas, another good game coming up in the next week here. But let's keep things rolling right along here, Salika. Over in the Sun Belt Conference, where we got Arkansas State. Also did not play this week.
Yeah, they did not play this week. And then you look at the three games that were against D1 opponents, Marshall, Georgia State, and Texas State, all coming up short.
Yeah, but so let's look more sleek ahead for the next week here as we do get right back into conference play. Start actually tonight with Arkansas State's at Old Dominion among the other games here.
Well, they have the Virginia road trip with Old Dominion and James Madison, which is not going to be an easy double right there. And then after that, they're going to have South Alabama and Troy the following week. So they're going to be getting their Spurs on the road early on.
Yeah, Griggs, it's a tough, rough start to conference. Well, not really. They've already played one game, but tough spot here. 4 straight tough road games to get back into conference play.
Yeah, and I don't know who they made mad to put that schedule together at the league office, but yeah, a tough way to get started. But another way of looking at that is if you're trying to build a profile and trying to do things that are impressive, if they can somehow get through that, what's that going to make them look like with all those road wins and a win over Memphis?
You mean go 4-0 here? Yeah, I don't know if they can, but go ahead, Rocco.
Yeah, it's interesting across Sun Belt scheduling. Almost everybody goes through it. You'll see Arkansas State has 2 different 4-game home stretches in a row. So I think, at various levels, looking here at Troy's schedule, they'll have a 4-game home stretch, a 3-game away stretch. It's just kind of the nature of the beast with all the rotations and travel partners. But yeah, it's going to really test them. I also think, South Alabama's been improving. They haven't lost since Thanksgiving. They go to the Georgia schools this week. And for Arkansas State, they open with Old Dominion tonight. They got to pound them because Old Dominion's been pretty bad throughout the year. They should get better at, new coaching staff, new roster, all that stuff. But Arkansas State's operating at a way different level.
Yeah.
That's actually going to be a 4-game road trip for Troy late in the season because you're going to throw in their Sun Belt MAC Challenge road game as well in there too.
Yeah, good call.
And that next round will be all at MAC schools when those games happen.
Pack your parka.
Yeah.
Griggs, let's finish things off here with our regular conferences over in the WAC, where Grand Canyon picked up the win over San Diego.
Yeah.
And then took care of Bryant as well. It was a bit of a strange game, but it got played.
Yeah, Grand Canyon, San Diego, the highlight event of that doubleheader. I forget who the first
you mean the one we couldn't even watch because it wasn't even streamed. That highlight.
Well, it was the second game, so it was the headliner.
After the UCLA Gonzaga, yeah,
it was the headliner. So, Seattle's had some moments. They're interesting. They're 3-9, but they're perhaps one of the more dangerous 3-9 teams out there. Their ceiling is high and their basement is low. We've seen them all over the map. I don't know if there's too many teams. I know Rocco's probably seen more than I have, but who's good is so good and who's bad is so bad. You just don't know what you're going to get with them any night. As far as the overall, who's the most solid team, it's got to be the Lopes. Southern Utah has been a little bit of fun, but isn't this sort of every night the Lopes play? It would be they're going to be favored to win, and they're probably going to consider it a disappointment if they lose. I'm not saying they're going to run the table, but I'm saying that I think they're a lot better than everybody else.
Yeah, they deserve that. They certainly are more talented than everybody else. I'd say Seattle's the second most talented. They've got some high-level guys with Matthew Alexander, Moncrief, but UT Arlington's the team I'm looking at as the the best challenger. They just had a great road win at Texas State where they really dominated the last 10 minutes of the game to steal that win. Texas State was arguably a top 20 under the radar team heading into the week last week. And Arlington's the team I picked top 10 in UTR to start the year. They finally starting to figure some things out. Deontay Smith, incredibly talented transfer from Nichols, went for 24 in that game. They still have Lance Ware. Darius Burford was a great player at Illinois State in the Valley. They have Brody Robinson. It's a very deep, experienced team. And then you look at the highest level of UT Arlington basketball guys. KT Turner came from Kentucky and took this job to win the WAC tournament, get to the NCAAs, and flip it and get to a better job. I think they're going to be very dialed in these next 2 months.
Yeah. Don't count out this Utah Valley team either. And there's an interesting game next Thursday night. Grand Canyon's going to Utah Valley. Griggs, you said they might be favored in every game. I'm not certain they'll be favored in Orem. I don't know. But,
yeah, they might go undefeated at home. I think that will be the toughest road game for the Lopes, just atmosphere and altitude. But yeah, and I think they're just very, very solid. So, but I also don't think Utah Valley is good enough to really blow teams out either. So they're kind of just really solid.
And well, that concludes all our regular conferences. Let's move over to some mythical leagues.
Yeah, the mythical leagues.
We got mythical rivals. We got mythical leagues. How about the Beehive Conference, where we've got the three-way tie between the aforementioned Utah Valley team, along with Utah and Utah State. Didn't actually have any games last week or this week, though.
Yeah, things are getting heated in the Beehive.
We got to get some games out of BYU and Southern Utah, though. They've got to get things rolling here. And then
preferably against someone besides Utah Tech. They've suffered in it.
Over in the Front Range, we also didn't have any games. Colorado's still holding on to first place. But we've got a big one coming up here. Wyoming, their first game of the season, and at Air Force.
At Air Force. Oh, big one. I mean, these Front Range games, you just never know what to expect.
How about our back range down in Arizona and New Mexico and those states there? We didn't actually have any conference games, and Arizona State's still leading the way.
Not among the first year, at least.
Yeah, big news out of New Mexico State, as Rocco said at the top of the show. They're firing their AD. I've already made mention about how big of a priority the back range would be for me if I were to get that position.
Over the top range. How about in Eastern Washington and Idaho and Montana? Where
Wazoo
is being dominant here, on pace for the auto bid out of the top range. But we got a lot of games this week. Montana and Montana State at Idaho and at Eastern Washington each. So we're going to see some big changes in the standings come next week.
Yeah.
And our newest mythical conference, it is the Conference of Champions.
Yeah.
Don't know how we got these teams together. They don't really belong, but
yeah, I think this one's a little too far-fetched.
But Colorado and Arizona State here coming up, and that is not only a Conference of Champions battle, it's also the battle between our current leaders in the Front Range and the back range, Greg. So we got all kinds of titles on the line for Saturday. Yeah. Let's go to our top 10 list. All four of us submitted votes or ballots. Some honorable mentions teams that are not in our Hoops HD top 10 this week. Barely missed. North Dakota State, Samford, Grand Canyon, Columbia, Kent State, Northern Iowa, and McNeese getting a little bit of love for an honorable mention after falling all the way out. At number 10, we have College of Charleston.
Still holding on there. Chris Mack and company. It's that crab soup.
How about
Princeton?
The Princeton Tigers?
Yeah, I think that's more of well, in my case, I did vote for Princeton. It was
Louisiana Tech got a CUSA in here at 8th, followed by Bradley out of the Missouri Valley Conference coming in at number 7.
Yeah, Bradley had a great year.
Arkansas State, we just discussed them in the Sun Belt. They are up to number 6 in the nation now, and the Hopes HD under the radar top 10.
4 big road games coming up. Yeah.
Furman coming in at number 5, running so far the best team in the SoCon. Not running away with it. Sanford's
hands
right there,
down. Yeah, Sanford, the Bucky Bowl.
UC Irvine coming in at number 4, the Eaters.
Yeah, really like this Irvine team. I know that they had a really bad night out at Duquesne, but other than that, they're still really good overall.
Liberty, CUSA, went at number 3. And
need to play some. Yeah, need to
coming
lose
in
some weight.
number 2, following their loss, Drake falls to
yes.
And
I mean, no,
here we
not that
go.
I was happy to see Drake lose, but we all know who number one is. And
For the first time
yes,
in program
yes.
history, the number one team in the Hoops HD Under the Radar Top 10, it is the Trains of UC San Diego. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Not a team that we even had our scope for being on the Under the Radar Top 10 coming into the season, all the way up to number one. Next step, top 25 nationally and onto the Hoops HD report.
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
But on that note, let's go ahead and pull this down and run through each of you for any final thoughts. Talika, let me start with you.
Well, with the new year brings a couple of ticket specials, so I will be taking advantage of Wright State's 2 tickets for $15. So we get to see the train wreck that is Green Bay tonight, along with our good friend Greg Campy the following week. So it'll be 2 good games to see Wright State in person.
No, actually, you're paying $30 for the Greg Campy game. The Green Bay game is free. That's the
Yeah.
No, it's 15 for 2, so it's
15 for 2.
7.15.
Okay, you pay 15 for the Greg Campy game. The Green Bay game is free. God.
Pretty much.
Rocco.
Yeah, well, we talked about the Big West. There's so many big stories at the top. Then you have solid second-tier teams like Riverside, Northridge, Cal Poly, et cetera. But I want to get a shout-out in while we can still to Long Beach State. First-year head coach Chris Acker. Again, I thought it was going to be a rebuilding year, and perhaps it still will be. They started 1-8, really took their lumps. But then December started. They picked up 3 road wins at Fullerton, at San Diego, at Pepperdine, 2 WCC level wins, and then beat a good Hawaii team at home by 8. And now they're suddenly on a 5-game win streak. They host UC Riverside here later today, and then they go to Bakersfield on Saturday. So a real opportunity to go 4-0 in the Big West. They have a great story brewing with Cam Martin, a freshman, overlooked freshman out of Maryland. Got him to come all the way out to play at Long Beach, and some really good vets around him with, Devin Askew still around, and TJ Wainwright's had a really good year. So again, not something I predicted at all, but Long Beach State under Acker, I thought wouldn't be a factor until next year. They're really starting to impress me here, in recent play.
Oh, absolutely. We'll keep an eye on them. Greg, you want to finish the show off?
Yeah, now that pretty much all of the under the radar conferences are getting into conference play or will be doing it this week, it's sort of we've pointed this out before. I've certainly mentioned it. When you talk about under the radar teams that can make a run at the bubble and what that requires, it can certainly be done. We see it done every year, but I still think that it's a bit of a circumstantial disadvantage than what the teams in the multi-bid leagues have, because they don't have the luxury of being able to improve throughout the year and get good wins in conference play. They essentially have the first 6.5 weeks of the season to get the kinds of wins that would impress the committee. To get those games even scheduled, if they can, they have to sort of schedule them under unfavorable and uneven circumstances. And then they got to get a couple big wins. And then if you are UC San Diego or UC Irvine or Furman, somebody that's way up the list, you're really just looking to hold serve the rest of the way, and that can be hard. It's not like, a big game, we've got Kansas or this top 25 team coming in, and this could be a really big win for us. All you're really doing the rest of the way is trying to not stub your toes, and that is hard to do. I don't need to tell you guys how hard it is to run through the Big West. And say UC San Diego does finish with 2 or 3 losses, that doesn't make them any worse than what they already are. They're still really dangerous. And that's just, I kind of wish there was, I don't think the tournament needs expanding, but I kind of wish that there was some sort of mechanism to get really good under the radar teams chances at quality wins later in the year, like what the power conferences have.
Like maybe we could set up an event where
maybe
where you choose another top under the radar team to play late in the season. We could call it something like Bracket Buster.
Like a Bracket Buster. that would be fantastic.
Anyhow,
go ahead, Rocco. One note on that too is if the Big West tournament was only a week earlier, we do have a situation this year where both UC San Diego and Drake, I think, only scheduled 30 games. So they could have played in that last week if they were both close enough to the bubble. Anyway,
Yeah.
something to monitor because we might still try to make it happen.
Well, we could squeeze. Can we squeeze in some Friday or something, or a Sunday, or
They
a
can
Monday
still,
game?
yes.
Or...
The answer is yes. Now, it may not be done, but
Do it
we
in
were
Salt Lake City.
yelling for this last year when Princeton and Dayton both had an extra game. Again, Dayton had to schedule the game or
Yeah.
cancel a game. I believe it was out at UNLV. But yes, you can add a team. There is no rule that says you can't. You absolutely can. Rocco, make that happen. I want to see that game.
Oh, heck yeah. Oh,
We'll get
Salt
him-
Lake
get him on
City,
the
here we
phone.
come.
Yeah.
On that note, on behalf of Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org, David Griggs, John Stalika, and my cat, who's been running around my
Yeah.
crazy here, I want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll be back next week with another Under the Radar, back to our normal Wednesday night schedule. Monday night, Hoops AG Report, and Sunday night, our first bracket rundown show of the season. So
Yeah.
got a lot of stuff coming up. But thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll be talking to you again a lot really soon.